right before we play, a good friend of ours like passes right outside, like out cold, like too drunk. And it's like, oh shit, like I need to get her help. Her boyfriend was doing camera work there. So I like text him, and like all these bouncers like, you gotta get her out of here. I'm like, dude, we're about to play. So I get her help. We get on stage, and like I'm like, all right, no one's gonna be here, and it's like packed.
I'm drinking beer for the taste. I'm drinking whiskey from the effort. It's 6 a.m. and I haven't got to bed yet. Some of my friends think I should quit. I'm tired of hearing all that shit. Pour another round.
Hello, welcome to 3 Gigs, the podcast that tells the stories of 3 shows that have had a profound effect on the performer's life and career. Their very first show, their best show, and their worst show. I'm your host, Dominic Davey, and today my guest is Mike Terry, vocalist and guitarist for the Jukebox Romantics.
Skid right to the top of all the monsters inside. I'm drinking beer for the taste. I'm drinking whiskey from the effort. It's 7 a.m. and I haven't got to bed yet.
Starting in 2008 from Orange County, New York, the Jukebox Romantics play in-your-face, fun, heartfelt punk rock. And for the past decade, they've taken their talked-about live show from coast to coast, including multiple appearances at Gainesville's Fest, Vans Warped Tour, Poozza Fest, South by Southwest, and more. Jukebox Romantics' current sound transformed and progressed after they restructured to a 3-piece back in 2014, and since then, the band has embarked on several US and European tours, including a West Coast run with Les and Jake and Face to Face. Their latest record, Sleepwalk Me Home, was on Paper and Plastic Records, and they just released a split with the Sewer Rats a few months ago. I met Mike Terry through my friend, steadfast drummer Charlie Price, and very quickly we became friends. Mike is talented, he's sharp, and he's just a class act all around. His stage performance is awesome, the songs are infectious, and it makes sense why the band is making such a name for themselves. So I was really excited to have him on the show and have a great conversation, and we did. We talked about a lot, including the state of punk rock today, so I hope you enjoy it. But of course, as usual, we started with the story of his first show ever.
First show ever. So I was in a band in 2000 called Foul Mouth. It was just a bunch of friends playing covers. I think we had our first show, we played 24 songs. I think 20 of them were covers. It was in a basement. It was our drummer's basement, and we invited like all of our friends and all these girls that we thought were cool. And I think we were like in 8th grade, 9th grade. I was in 8th grade. They were like my band members were like in 6th and 7th grade. I was the old guy in the band as in 8th grade. And really we invited everybody over like after school, and everybody sat down like cross-legged, like just on the floor, and we played so many Bouncing Souls and Alkaline Trio songs, and Ramones songs, and Sex Pistols songs, and our own bad songs, and no microphones, just straight music. Some people sang along, like, and that was the first show I ever played. I think the first proper show came very soon after, within like a few months. I didn't know where to play, so I just kind of went down to the local community center. It was called the Embassy Club in Dobbs Ferry, New York, and I told the guy there that I wanted to put on a concert. I mean, that's the word I used. It was before we were calling them shows. I don't know, maybe we were calling them shows at that point. But yeah, I was like, I want to do a concert. He's like, okay, well, you can't curse and there can't be any mosh pits. I was like, no, I don't think so. And so I remember we bought like an $800 PA system, which might have been like the most expensive thing I had bought at that time. Definitely. Like it took us like the whole band and people were begging their parents to give us money for this PA system. And we put on a show. I put flyers up. I remember the way we promoted the show, like this is literally like the 2 months later after this basement thing, was the way we were promoting and everything. We were like putting flyers up along with the mall and our school, and it just had the name of our band and like the 3 other bands. I don't even remember who they were. And we just had a picture of Zach Morris from Saved by the Bell on the flyer, and it just said, "I'll be there." And then just that. It was just the band names, the date and venue, and then it just said, "I'll be there," with a picture of Zach Morris. So we were just hoping that, even though nobody knew who any of our bands were, the idea would be people thought that Mark Paul Gosling was going to be there.
Okay, that's amazing. That's really funny.
And it worked. People showed up.
It worked? Yeah? You had a crowd?
Well, I had about like 350, 400 people. It's pretty good.
That's pretty good for your first show. Damn, that's awesome.
Well, like, I mean, outside of that one basement like 2 months earlier.
Yeah. But it's kind of funny because I have to say your story, like, this is one of the more innocent stories I've heard. Like, you're just like, well, first you learned a bunch of covers, you played in the basement, and then, like, you put on a show, 300 to 400 people showed up. It's pretty cool.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know, like, where we live. So I live in Westchester County, New York. It's like in the shadows of Manhattan, suburbs of maybe, you know, we're about 10-minute train ride to Yankee Stadium and, like, 25, 30-minute car ride, train ride to Manhattan, like right downtown. So we're just north of the city, like a skip and a jump over from the Bronx. And so like the music scene here in like the early 2000s was like pretty popping, and there was a lot going on, a lot of ska and pop punk. And I think we were like the beginning of the second wave of like punk bands that were like of young bands like coming out. And there was like a couple like bar venues, and then like all within that year 2000 2001 like all these different places were popping up, teen centers and a lot of community centers, and it was a very big all ages young crowd. But there wasn't pretty much anyone there over 17. Like 17 you were considered old at that point at all those shows.
Mm-hmm. It's interesting. It's like I know this is kind of off subject, but it's so funny because I think back to the early days of playing shows and how it was such an all ages crowd. And I have felt like in the last couple of years, especially the last few years, it feels like punk has tried to scale up to older. And I don't know how I feel about it. You know, it's like
it's weird. Like we caught ourselves doing it, and we stopped right away. Like we noticed that there's like a huge trend, and like what happened was there's like there are younger people getting into making music in bands, depending on like the scene and where you are city wise. But what happened was there's a lot of the older bands, people like who've been playing for a while and touring and stopped playing in like their local scene. What happened was they got somewhat jaded, and they, you know, a lot of bands started writing songs about being in a band. So the only people that appeals to are people in bands. So you wind up getting people in their like mid-20s to, you know, 40s, 50s who are in bands going to your shows, and not like young kids. So like you're kind of like, you know, not including them. So we caught that a few years ago, and we're like, all right, let's stop writing about being in a band. Like everybody writes about being in a band, you know.
Right.
It's like I think that's where it begins too, because everybody who's in a band can relate to songs like that, but you know, like unless you've been on the road and been in a van and like doing that thing, like everybody else it's just romanticized to them. They don't know, you know, what it's really like.
That's a really interesting point that I had not thought about, as how many songs have come out in the last couple of years that kind of very reflective of being an old, like kind of somewhat older and traveling a lot. I mean, basically that's what being in, you know, it kind of translates to sort of that alienation you feel like when you're on the road and far away from everybody and all those things that come up. And yes, I can relate to those things, and I totally get it, and you're right. But I don't know. I had thought, like, when we came back and started playing again, I had thought, like, you know, I guess it's just, maybe it is just an older crowd now. That's kind of weird. It's kind of a bummer. And then I got this, like, really sad letter from a 17-year-old in Vegas who couldn't go to our show because the show was happening at a bar. And and they were talking about how they just loved our band and wanted to be there, and all their friends wanted to go, but they couldn't go. And they were so bummed. They wanted to know when we were going to play an all ages show. And I was like, whoa, like that happened really early on. That was like maybe our like fifth show back. And I was like, whoa, okay. And then when we played Warped Tour, there were all these kids, and we were positive, like, nobody knows who we are. Like, they're going to not remember. And then we played to them, and all these kids kept coming up to us, and we ended up having this line when we were autographing. They were all super into it, and they were like, oh, I never heard of you guys before. You guys knew? This is so awesome. And they were really into it. And I was just like, dude, the kids are just as into it as ever. They're just not I'm kind of wondering if they're not really being given the opportunity to be into it. You know what I mean? Like, I kind of wonder.
I think it's a lot of factors, dude. And like, I think that's the main factor. I think is just that the oversaturation of different media and social media, and just like that you have to like to find the good stuff and the fun music and bands like yours and mine and the bands we all love. It's like, when we were getting into it, like we always had like an older brother or a friend or somebody who was in the scene that like brought us in. So I think there has to be a young person to bring another young person in, and all ages venues are part of that. But also part of it is just that, like, you know, when the internet was first starting out, we started promoting shows through that way. Like, there was only, you know, so many bands really doing it. There wasn't too many. It was, you flyered and you promoted on the internet, but it wasn't like the way it is now, where it's like Twitch and video games and Twitter and like Instagram and streaming. Like, the kids today have all these different distractions that, like, I bet you they hear about the shows, but they probably have no idea what the hell it is, you know?
Yeah, I mean,
they need somebody who's already there to bring them.
Well, I think somewhere along the line, if I had to make a judgy kind of call, is I feel like punk rock forgot how to throw a good party for a bunch of kids. And I mean,
dude, that is 100%, and that goes back to what I was stating before about how when we realized that we were writing songs about being older, and like, you know, all these bands write songs like, I'm fucking 30, I'm old now, woe is me, like songs, and like, I'm in a band songs. Like, we realized we wanted to start writing fun songs again. Or you can write stuff about serious stuff, but like, have fun, make it a party, like make a show like a memory, because the record is the record. And that, I always felt like records were more for the band. It's just like a snapshot of what you were doing, and it's like a kind of like a little business card of who you are. And like, yeah, the records mean a lot to people. And like, I have records that I've listened to every day since the day I got them, or like every week, you know. But a show is like a moment in time, a memory, like a feeling, emotion, like all these sights and smells. Like, I remember the smell of going to my first concert. I remember what it smelled like in that basement at our first show, you know, when the first show I ever played. Like, it's a different feeling. And I think everybody needs to, like, people in our position who put on shows and play shows and like do this, like, need to remember that it's about making memories and having fun. Because like, if we're not having fun, then what the hell's the point of doing it?
Yeah, and I mean, it's like, we're all, you know, some of us musicians have gotten, there's a whole crop of musicians that are older, and then, you know, there's always new ones popping up that are young, and that's just the way of it. But I would say, it's not like I'm like, I just want to play in front of kids. I'm not trying to be creepy here. It's just that, like, when a kid discovers, like, when you're somewhere between the age of, like, you know, when you're younger and you're a teenager and you're like 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, and you discover a band, that band could become the soundtrack of your life. It's like your band. And when you're in your 30s and you're older, like, you definitely have like a concept of what you like, and you either like it or you don't. And it's like, it's kind of hard to grab you, you know, it's like, it's harder to get you to fall in love with that moment. You're not immune to it. There's certainly people I've seen that have been won over and grabbed that way, but it's a lot harder. And I don't know, like, I mean, I was just trying to say, it's like, I think,
well, yeah, those people that are grabbed by it are people who were open to be grabbed by it. Like, right. They haven't, like, you know, there was some like study years ago saying like the bands, like, most people stopped finding new music like after high school, like, you know, kind of thing. But I think we're in a different position as musicians, so we're just, you know, we have friends and bands and music around us all the time. But yeah, you're 100% right, like, about playing in front of the kids, because like you can shape someone's childhood. Like, your music can actually change somebody, or for the better, you know?
Yeah. And I mean, the whole reason I got on this little side topic is like, listening to your story of your first shows are such a screenshot of, like, I mean, I don't mean this in a sarcastic way. It's very innocent. You know, it's like you guys got together and started playing shows, and all these kids showed up, and you sang to them, everyone sang along, and then you guys actually put on a show, and you scraped your money together, and you bought a PA. And it's like, I feel like those things are probably still happening. There's probably like little house shows and stuff, but there's a lot less all ages venues, and there's a lot of things that I see when we tour around and we play all these shows. I'm like, festivals are one thing, but I definitely see, some of the clubs, it's not quite as, they don't, I feel like in some cases they've kind of lost their path on how to grab more people, like, grab younger, grab the all ages, not just kids or adults, but all of them, like how to throw a really great party. It's like, I think sometimes I see that people forget that when we do these shows, you're not really, it's easy to think of it like, oh, I'm going to grab a bunch of bands, we're going to play this club, and we have a show. Everyone come to my show. You actually, what you're trying to do is throw a party, and you're just trying to play the party. And so I think that some people have forgotten that, like, that they're there thing for these shows. Like, what makes this show so special? Why do I care? Why am I going to come to this show and spend my money on this show and get all my friends to go? Are all my friends going to be there? Or like, what's going on? Like, how do you make your show awesome? Or are you just playing again? You know what I mean? Does that make sense? I don't know.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it's like,
makes sense. I think a lot of that makes total sense. I think, and there's a couple ways that I've seen, like, the all ages and like the party thing happen. It's more recently in the last few months I've been seeing, especially around here, is the lack of venues for smaller bands and younger bands to play at. Where what's happening is there's always going to be that, like, one bar or two or three places that you just have to find to have that, like, extra space or room that are, like, kind of a floundering place. And they're like, yeah, like, you can have your show here. And like, oh, you want to have people who are underage? Like, just have them pay like a couple extra bucks, or like, let's hide them in the back kind of thing. Right. Like, I've seen that at least around here. Like, there's a couple of people throwing shows now that I've seen younger people come out. I'm just like, whoa, young kids. This is awesome. And it's happening because it's happening in places where people, are not already, like, roadblocked because they know that, like, they can't get in. Right. And the story that you told me about somebody writing you a letter, like, that same thing happened to us in 2012, like the same exact thing, where it's like, you guys are coming to my town. I saw you guys play at this festival. You're coming back. You're playing at a 21 plus club. I can't get in. Like, what can you do? And literally there was nothing in that town where we could play. So these kids built us a venue to play at, and we came back like 8 months later.
That's amazing.
So it's out there, but it's one of those, like, situations where it's like, your scene is what you make of it. And I think everybody kind of knows that, like, in the smaller sense of things, like places that aren't clubs or bigger clubs, like, the music scene is only as strong as the people who are in it, promoting it and pushing it.
No, it's true.
And you have to have people behind it.
I think that there was, for a little while, there was maybe a bit of a gap where there wasn't quite so much of that older sister or older brother bringing somebody in. It felt like there was a bit of a gap, and, like, some of the younger kids has kind of turned into other things and other forms of music and other entertainment. Like you said, there's so many entertainment options out there. But I think in the end, it's like, people want to have a party. They all just want to know that everyone's going. You know what I mean? Like, they all got to know that all their friends are going to be there. And if all their friends are going to be there, they're going to be there. Doesn't matter what they're into. They're just going to come to the show. So, I don't know. I think there's a lot of factors involved. And
I think you also have to get, like, past their anxieties and all that stuff. You remember that stuff being a kid, like, going to your first, like, not that I'm not that type of person, but I knew plenty of friends who were just like, yeah, I've always wanted to come to one of these shows when we were younger, but I just was too afraid, or, like, you got to get past that. Like, there's
scared of the club,
something there.
Yeah, like, oh, I was afraid to go to that club, and he was like, you kidding? It was just kids. It's like all the kids from school. Come on. But
I got a cousin who's going into 9th grade, and he's never seen us play before. Like, we shot, like, a music video in his backyard, like, at my aunt's house, and we made it really funny, and we actually had him and his friends involved, but they had never been to, like, an actual concert before. And I was just like, like, all right, you're exactly at the age I was when I was doing this stuff. Like, why do you guys seem so much more innocent than we were? Like, almost, like, afraid, It might be because they grew up in a more sheltered world. At that age, we were already going into the city and riding the bus and taking trains to shows and going to parties and having parties. I don't even know if these kids would think about throwing parties. I feel like they would, like, eventually. I don't know. I think kids still throw parties one day.
I hope so.
Like,
I really hope so.
yeah. Or are they just on YouTube and FaceTiming each other? And like, they don't need to have a party because everybody could be at the party when it's on the internet. You know, I don't know.
I think there's some of that. I think it's kind of all above, and it's like, you know, it's hard to generalize because there might be people listening to this show who's sitting there going, "What are you talking about? Me and my friends, we're always doing shows and stuff," you know, and then you have others going, somebody listening to this same episode going, "Yeah, I don't know, man. Maybe the club in my town. I don't know. Maybe." You know,
dude, it's definitely,
it's
definitely
both.
pockets. There's great places. Seventh Circle in Denver, Colorado, huge all ages venue, huge, big stage, awesome, well run, like all by kids, for kids. Like, those places exist, and it's you know, lots of house venues, like, you know, a lot of college towns. Like, it exists, sure, but I don't know if at the younger level of that thing, even younger, like, you know, your 8th, 9th grade, like just getting into it, like the way it was, maybe. Yeah. I don't know.
Like I said,
I don't know because I'm not that age. So I don't know. I don't get the words. You know.
Yeah, no,
different
right.
Words.
We don't get invited, and it'd be creepy if we were. But
right. But I've seen it on the other side of things, just like you did, like Warped Tour. Like, we were very fortunate enough. We just did that a run with Les and Jake and Face to Face, which is, you know, two bands that have been around, you know, since I started playing music. So like, their fans are my age, having kids, and there was lots of kids at those shows, and it took their family to bring them there. So like, yeah, it's all about somebody including you in on the club and the party. That's always what punk rock's been. Somebody's just got to show it to you and tell you to come hang out.
No, that's a perfect way of putting it. Right on. Well, that, like I said, that's a great first show because it inspired that conversation too.
Right.
But so if that was okay, all right. So let's move it forward.
Italian New Yorker, dude. I'll talk forever. Italian New Yorkers. That's what happens. We're gonna go 17 tangents of the tangent.
You know what? That's probably exactly what's gonna happen because you're talking to a West Coast Sicilian. So like, this is all it's gonna happen. We're just gonna talk the whole time. I hope everyone buckle up. So okay, well then, if that was your first show, what has been one of the best shows that you've played? Like, one of your favorites, or even a couple favorites. Like, what's something that's really stood out to you as like a really amazing moment where you were like, wow, this is everything this is why I do this. This is why I wanted to do this.
Ooh, probably our set at the Fest last year in Gainesville. Really? Yeah. I mean, there's been a lot of awesome shows. I've got to play with so many of my heroes and bands and like, and stuff like that over the years, and toured and traveled, and like, you know, but like, that was one where it was like, all right, like, cool, we're playing the Fest. We haven't played in 7 years. We played in 2010, and that was the last time we had been to the Fest or played the Fest, and the band is completely different from then. And we were playing at 8 seconds during the wrestling. So in between, they do Fest wrestling.
Yeah.
Now it's not a secret that our band, or at least me, I love pro wrestling, and punk rock and independent music is very similar to the life of independent wrestling. Traveling around, touring, booking your stuff, like sleeping on floors and couches, shitty hotels, like the 9 yards. It's very similar lifestyle.
It's true. My co-host on Monster Candy podcast, the horror podcast I do, is Shotzi Blackheart, and she's I don't know if you've heard of her, but she's an independent wrestler.
Yeah, no, I know her from watching the WWE Tough Enough competition years ago.
yeah.
And I saw, and I she's actually doing Fest wrestling this year.
She is.
I saw that, when I found out, I've been listening to your other podcast probably within the last couple of months. I discovered it. I had no idea. And we're buds. You didn't even tell me. I didn't even know. I probably didn't. I probably just missed out. But I'm such a horror nerd. But when I saw that she was your co-host, I was like, oh, I know who that is. That's cool.
Yeah, she's a great horror. She has a mind for horror movies. She's awesome, and she's kind of why we did the podcast, because she was looking to do something. But yeah, she's going to be at Fest. We're really excited to find out we were both going to be there, because I'm playing Fest for the very first time this year, and
dude, you're gonna have a fucking blast.
You know, this is not the first time on this show people have said that the Fest was one of their best shows. Like, that's really amazing. Like, Now watch.
Well,
I'm gonna have an absolute shit show when I go there because everyone's talking so good about it. But so
dude,
it was your
we have a shit show. We have a shit show though. The show I'm talking about was a shit show.
okay. Then please continue. So,
But it was the best. It was the best shit show ever, which is like what being in a band is. You know.
yeah. Well, so it was your first show back after years. So you changed. You had no idea what you guys were gonna expect, and you got added.
Yeah, like we had toured, like we have been touring and doing all that stuff. We just haven't played Fest. Like, you know, we had asked to get on a bunch of years in a row, like everybody does, and Tony was just like, "Yeah, I love your new record. Like, I would love to have you guys play. I know you guys did a music video with Chikara, which is like a bigger independent wrestling company. Like, would you want to do the wrestling thing?" And we're like, "Yeah, sure. Like, all right. Like, if you think that's cool." I think it was the first year they were doing the wrestling thing with the bands. So they basically have like a set of wrestling and then like a band play and then a set of wrestling and then a band play. So we were like, okay, like, you know, like we'll do that. You know, it was the last day, I believe. And we were stoked, and it was like, oh, we're on against Iron Sheik, another like New York, East Coast, like kind of band, exactly the same time, 6 o'clock, like right near each other. I was like, we're dead in the water. Like, no one's going to come watch us play because like the Iron Sheik's a pretty hot band. And, you know, I think they're a great band. I'd go watch them. But, I mean, we played with them before. Great band, good stuff. But like, they're a perfect example of a band that's for people in bands. So we're playing, and like right before we play, a good friend of ours like passes right outside, like out cold, like too drunk, and it's like, oh shit, like I need to get her help. Her boyfriend was doing camera work there, so I like text him, and like all these bouncers like, you gotta get her out of here. I'm like, dude, we're about to play. So I get her help. We get on stage, and like I'm like, all right, no one's gonna be here, and it's like packed. There's the room was packed. There's no stage because of the wrestling. You play on the floor, so that's like, you know, brings me back to the basement of the first show.
Right.
Of just like on the floor with everybody there, and we're surrounded by friends, people in bands that, you know, we're friends with, and like people who seen us all around the country and in other countries, because that's what Fest really is. It's like all your friends and fans and supporters and other bands that you're homies and brothers with and brothers and sisters with, that like they're all at Fest, so everybody's there to see each other play and to party, to hang out, and like, you know, all your diehard fan base and friends or supporters or, you know, are there at Fest because everyone's favorite bands are playing, and it's like the best party. Like, you goes back to what you're saying. Right. So right off the bat, just like people throwing beers, like throwing streamers, like it's just a mess. We get 2 songs in, the PA system explodes. Doesn't matter. Everybody's singing along to a new record that wasn't even out yet. You know, then like the PA comes back on. Who falls? Who's slipping? Because there's booze everywhere. There's just people just spitting beer in each other's faces, just dancing, partying, have a good time. Like new faces, old faces, just like really just the best party for 25 minutes, you know? And then like it was over, and like it was like, it wasn't just like we thought it was cool. Everyone was just like, that was a great time, which is like what everybody should feel like, what you should feel like after like a set. You know, that's like, if every set could be like that for every band, like it'd be amazing, because it was literally just like anarchy, but like controlled.
Yeah. No, I know what you mean.
Yeah.
Those are the best moments that you can get. I like I said, I've never played that festival, never even been to it. This is total first time. I'm staying the whole weekend. I'm going to see everybody I can, and I'm looking forward to it. But I the first time I encountered Fest, I saw a video of Gabe playing with Nothington when they played there a while back. Mm-hmm. And I just remember seeing the whole crowd, like they hit the first chords, and then the whole audience like sang every word, and you can kind of see the band on stage kind of react like, oh shit, oh my god, everybody knows the words. And it was just like, it just exploded, and I was like, wow, what a show. And then I found out it was Fest, and that's how I actually, that I first heard about it. And then a lot of people have talked about it just being a moment. So it's cool that it's such an experience. Hopefully I have a similar one, but that's awesome. I mean, those are the best. You can't ask for better, of just, you know, chaos and craziness, and and just
Nah,
awesome.
like, I mean, the PA system didn't work. Like, in any other situation, most of the time, like, man, this sucks. And, like, we've all played through shit that doesn't work or sounds like crap or cuts out, and it's more frustrating than anything. In this situation, it was just like, everyone was like, fuck it, just go with it. Like, everyone's singing along anyway, so what does it matter?
Right.
Like, you know, it goes back to that first show where there was no microphone, and everybody was singing along. I mean, they were sitting, you know, cross-legged like kindergartners, but it was the same idea of, like, you know, you don't need a PA system. You just have, you know, scream loud enough, and everybody else knows the words. You just were making up words. It didn't matter. I saw videos of that show where people were just making up words to songs. It like didn't even matter.
Man, that's
Like,
awesome.
that's just how much fun people were trying to have, you know.
That's and it must have been an amazing moment for you guys to go, wow, like, people missed us. Like, it's worth it. Like, you know, like you said, it was our first show back, so it must have really felt.
Well, it wasn't our first show back, so it was our first show back at Fest.
Oh,
So,
okay, right.
We tour all the time. We try to do at least like 100 to 200 shows a year, and at that, you know, at one point we were touring like months and months at a time. Just one of those bands that just never was home.
I know
And
that's
now
how you guys
do it
are.
more
Yeah.
Yeah. Now it's been a little bit different. Like, where we do it more like seasonal and like do 3 weeks on, 3 weeks off. Like, you know, 4 weeks on, 4 weeks off, and then kind of just bounce around. And like now just leaving the country a bunch. But like, yeah, that was like the first time where it was like, oh, like, you know, people from every coast and some other countries are like, oh, here. And like, it's cool. 'Cause like, you know, that's one of the reasons why we love the tour, is to make friends and see friends, you know, that's part of it. So that's just seeing all your friends at one big party. So it's great.
That's awesome. That's really cool.
Yeah.
That's
It
a
was a
great
good time.
story. Yeah, that's a great story. Right on. Okay, perfect. If you ever get a chance to see Shotzi Blackheart, you should. Just to wrestle.
Well, I mean, I'll be so this year. Fest Wrestling's on Sunday again, I believe, and we play Saturday. So I will be at the wrestling and get to watch it a lot, and like, it'll be great because some of my favorite wrestlers wrestled last year. So, and there's a bunch wrestling this year too. So
awesome.
I'm pumped.
I will be at your show, and I will definitely be at wrestling. So.
Oh yeah, I love wrestling. It's currently on in the background as we talk right now.
That's awesome. Yeah. Awesome. Okay, so that's a pretty epic best show. That's a great story. So if that was the first, and your best show is when a PA went out on you, what is something that would be like one of your worst shows? Like, what would be a show where you're like, oh God, what have I done? Why am I here?
I don't know. There's a lot of bad ones, and I'm sure you hear this on the show all the time. Actually, I've listened to your show and heard people say this. Shout out to Jeff Dean from Airstream, because I'm pretty sure he said the same thing of like, you try to forget all the bad ones. I mean, I know a bunch of shows that didn't happen, or a show where it's like traveled really far and got there, and it was supposed to be like at a house. This is in like Montreal. This is like a solo show I was doing a couple of years ago. I was doing a run with my buddy Kyle Tricola. Everybody check out Kyle Tricola and the Strangers, best like singer-songwriter album of 2018 for sure. I was doing a run with him with a band called the Scowls from Montreal, and we were going to play somewhere outside of Toronto in Hamilton or Oshawa, or one of these towns, and somebody was going to throw a party at their house. Sounded like it was going to be cool. And we got there, and it was just an acoustic tour, so it was easy enough, but like it was like a meth house. And not like I'm saying it was a meth, like a meth house, because we've all played dirty punk houses. Like meth. Like they were cooking something in there. There was like dogs and mold, and like the show like never happened. Like we were waiting. They're like, yeah, like we told some people, but like, and they were all strung out, and like it was real weird, and like it was a nice day out when like this was only like 4 or 5 years ago. We were like playing hacky sack and just trying to like, make the best of it. We were going to barbecue, and then like we realized that like nobody was coming and it was getting dark, and we were supposed to crash there, and we were like, you know what? We're not gonna play. Like it's all good. And like, oh, take out your guitars. So like everybody took out their guitars, and we all played a couple of covers. Nobody played like anything. It was very like sit there and do whatever, but it was like the most awkward like few hours. Like it went on too long, and it's probably because the Canadians are too nice, so nobody wanted to be like, all right, let's go, let's get the fuck out of here. So like, you know,
Yeah,
and,
right.
and me being who I am, just like way too Mr. PMA. I was like, yeah, like sure, let's hang out, like, you know, like while you're like scratching the shit out of your arm, and like it was just real dark, like not good. And I mean, and that was a solo show, so but not the worst Jukebox Romantic show by far. Definitely, maybe me personally, a low. Luckily, I was with great people, and like we could all laugh about it. But yeah, that was a pretty bad one. I think another probably worst show. I'm trying to think. I don't know. I never had like a band blow up or argument, but we were away in Germany, and everybody was real stressed out and tired, and there was a lot of shit going on. And I remember just like having a big argument with our bass player, and then like we went on stage, and like it was visible that we were both not happy, and it was the first time like where like ever I was just like, I'd rather be doing something else right now.
Right.
And like that's probably like the worst show in the history of me playing shows. It was like we were in another country. I think we were somewhere in Germany, and we just had a blow up. And it was about like, you know, it was just all about being we were both tired, and like somebody was, you know, pushing buttons, and we, you know, because we travel so much together, we're together all the time. Somebody was too drunk, and like just like we said everything we wanted to say to each other, but we should have waited till afterwards. And we said it before, and it got really like tense. And I think we were both very upset, and we were on stage, and like I was trying to still be very professional on stage and like have a show, but like the attendance of the show sucked. So like it couldn't even, like, you know, a good show will fix anything.
Yeah, right.
And it was
Great
just
moment.
like yeah, like so like the show could have fixed it if there was like a lot of people there, but there wasn't. It was just a lot of like real tough looking skinhead dudes, or looking dudes. No, they weren't, you know, racist skinheads, but they were all very big, tough, hardcore dudes. And like anytime I tried to like make a joke or crack a joke, like, you know, there was a language barrier. Our bass player wasn't even looking at me or like engaging at all or moving around on stage. It was probably the worst show I ever played. And it was strictly because of like personal reasons and like a lack of audience. If there was an audience there, I'm sure we would have just moved on and it would have been fine. But since it was like already a black cloud over the day and night, it was like, fuck this, like get me to the next show and like, let's get on with this day.
Yeah.
You know? So probably that's probably the worst show. And like, I don't know if anyone's ever said a show like that on your show. I bet you people say like, oh, things went wrong, but it was like it was like a dark moment for the band, and like between me and him, and like it was resolved right afterwards, like probably the next day.
Yeah,
because we don't hold grudges, because like why, you know, and you know that shit happens, you know, when there's that much time and energy involved, and like tensions are high, like over stupid shit, like you realize that like, you know, should just let all that shit go. So yeah, that was probably the worst one by far.
I think that a lot of people don't know, you know, doing the touring thing is like some of the best moments of my life have happened while I was on tour, and experiencing like a great show or seeing an amazing place or meeting amazing friends that I've had forever. But at the same time, exactly what some people are afraid of, you are trapped in a small box with a small group of people, and it's, you know, if you're exhausted and you've just been going and grinding, and it could be any number of reasons. Somebody gets too drunk, you're tired, shows haven't been going very well, money's tight, stuff happens back home, and you know, you just like push the wrong buttons, and like it can just twist so quick. But then, like you said, it can go snap right back in, and a great moment can fix everything, and it can all be cool. But it's tough. It's tough to like maintain a group for so long. You know, it's like I think a lot of people don't quite have an understanding of what that is, what that means. You know, and what it means to try and hold a group of people together.
Oh yeah, I think the best way most of us describe it, and I've heard lots of people describe it, so I'm not going to take credit for it, but it's like, you know, being in a marriage or a relationship, but with like 3+ people at the same time. So, you know,
yeah.
it's like, you know, marriages and all that stuff takes work and understanding and knowing each other and knowing when to say something and when not to, and when somebody needs like, you know, an extra hug or, you know, an extra space. And when there's, you know, that many people involved, it's, you know, it's even harder. So,
Being in a band ruined superhero comics for me. Because if you think about it, I mean, I still love comics, and there are certain ones, but I realized how little the people writing superhero teams had an understanding of what the dynamic of an actual group is. That is unified not by a monetary business action, but by a shared vision. And like what exactly it's like to be a group. Like what that actually means. You know, like some comics will like touch on it for a second, but because most of the time people who write the comics have never been in a band I think is the closest thing to what it's like to be in the X-Men that you could possibly find. Like you just have a group of people who like, all right, we all believe in this one thing.
Maybe the Watchmen kind of got it. You know, they kind of got it.
Kind of got it.
I'm trying to think. Maybe they kind of got it, but they all had different ideals anyway.
Yeah. And that kind of caught them all at the time where it was kind of like after the band, you know, like that the Watchmen kind of takes place like after the band had broken up. You know, it's like
right. And they had the one guy, the comedian who was like the elder statesman of the old band, who was like trying to do his thing anyway.
No, totally.
Yeah.
But I mean, like, you know, I read these comics and there's these little like soap opera-ish moments of interaction between these superheroes, and I'm like, I don't know, man, you're missing out on a lot of reality of what these things are if you got some bands to write. You know who actually did a good job with it, I think, but also his comic was after the fact, is Gerard Way with Umbrella Academy. I think he kind of got the sniping and bickering and then like still shared affection of a band. And his story, Umbrella Academy, kind of takes place after the group broke up and is coming kind of back together. But I was like, there's a little bit in there. He knows what it's like. His comic.
Maybe well, you know, it's funny now. You got me thinking about that book we were talking about off air earlier with Paper Girls. I don't know if you read it at all.
Yeah,
but that's very much that like that. I mean, they're not really superheroes. But they kind of are. I mean, they're not doing anything super. They don't have any powers really, but
it's a unified group of friends who are sticking together through a bunch of crazy stuff. Yeah, I always thought it would make for a great, if you could take a band's experience and transpose it to a superhero supergroup experience. It'd be interesting. I don't know. I think there's something there.
Maybe, or it would just turn out like a terrible DC Justice League movie.
It's like, this is way too dark. It's not fun at all. I don't like this. It's terrible.
Or the Suicide Squad, one or the other.
It's Sunday evening in Oklahoma. I always find myself here at this time, and when we get there, will I still know you? These hopes and dreams still shining in your eyes.
You've been listening to Mike Terry, guitarist and vocalist for the Jukebox Romantics. You can find out more about the band at their Facebook page. Just look up facebook.com/The Jukebox Romantics. Thank you so much for tuning in to 3 Gigs. Feel free to check out our website at 3gigspodcast.com to find extras and live footage of all of our guests, including live footage of the Jukebox Romantics themselves. You can follow us on Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram just by searching 3 Gigs Podcast. And you can let us know what you think of the show and who you'd like to see as a guest in the future. Let me know. I'm listening. Now, if you're enjoying the show and would like to do the show a solid, please head over to our iTunes page and give us a quick rating and a review. iTunes uses the amount of ratings and reviews to determine the reach of the show. The more we have, the more people find us. So a review and a rating is very much appreciated. So thank you in advance. Our theme music today is Breaking Rad by the Jukebox Romantics from Sleepwalk Me Home, out now on Paper and Plastic Records. And we're closing with Jessica Walker, Texas Ranger, also by the Jukebox Romantics, off of their new split 7-inch with the Sewer Rats, out now on Mad Drunken Monkey Records /Monster Zero /Creep Records. Thank you so much for listening. My name is Dominic Davey, and this has been 3 Gigs. I hope you had as much fun as I had. We'll see you next time. Have a good one.
We surely lack the ambition